Welcome in, Minnesota sports fans, to another edition of Vikings on SI right here on the Bring Me the Sports YouTube channel. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Will Ragatz and Joe Nelson. Boys, there's another big win for the Vikings this weekend, 31-29. Made us all sweat it out in that second half for sure, but the Vikings improved to 4-0, and the national media seems to be hopping aboard the Vikings bandwagon, which Joe was already piloting since before this season started. But now I guess the question begs, after a 4-0 start, do the Vikings have a good claim to being the best team in the NFL?
Resume-wise, yeah, I think so. I think they're tied with the Saints for the best point differential in the league, and the Saints have lost 2 in a row. They just absolutely beat up on Carolina and somebody else the first couple of weeks. Dallas it was. But yeah, the Vikings are right up there. I think the statement that the Ravens made against the Bills on Sunday night, they're up there. The Chiefs are 4-0, but Rashee Rice might be out for the year. Hollywood Brown's out for the year. Isaiah Pacheco's hurt. Like, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. They're the 2-time defending Super Bowl champs. They deserve to be in that conversation. But it's hard to argue against the Vikings being right in that mix. And I think if they had finished off like a 35-10 win over the Packers, which it looked like they were cruising to in the first half, they'd have a really, really strong case. And the conversation today would be even a little different. The fact that they held on for dear life, 131-29, it got really dicey there. I was in the press box at Lambeau Field frantically rewriting my recap, even when it got to 28-22. And then the Vikings were able to respond. There's some things to clean up, and Kevin O'Connell said that after the game. You know, they know that they have to be better in the second half, both on offensively, converting short yardage situations, piling on to the lead, and then defensively not giving up. They gave up a drive of 89 yards and a drive of 96 yards in that fourth quarter, both pretty quickly. So things to work on, but 4-0 is 4-0. The fact that they've gotten through this part of the schedule, I mean, we came into the season thinking, I don't know about Joe, but I was thinking 2-2. 2-2 would be great after this schedule, this 4-game start. And they've beaten 3 straight teams that were in the divisional round of the playoffs last year, and they have looked dominant at times, at least, against all 3 of them. So unbelievable start. Lots of credit to Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, Sam Darnold, the players up and down the roster. And now you got what looks like a pretty winnable game in London to get to 5-0 at the bye.
Yeah, it's really cool to watch how coaching has mattered so much this season. It feels maybe it's a phenomenon that others have recognized in other markets, and we just haven't here in Minnesota for years. But when you get this kind of coaching and the national media jumps on board, and you get to watch it kind of manifest up close and personal, it's really fascinating. I mean, Kansas City's coaching staff has them 4-0. Obviously, they have Patrick Mahomes, but Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, the offensive and defensive brains over there, it doesn't get much better than that. That's why I can't put the Vikings quite above the Chiefs just yet. They're the Super Bowl champs. They're undefeated. Even when they have guys hurt, they make it really, really, really hard on you in all aspects of the game. It's plug and play with Patrick Mahomes. Even with the running backs there, it's plug and play, it seems like, and that's a testament to Andy Reid. But you look at what the Washington Commanders are doing too. I'm not saying they're anywhere near as good as the Vikings or the Chiefs right now, but they're quietly 3-1. And who are their coaching masterminds? Dan Quinn's running that defense, and then Cliff Kingsbury, who gets out of the spotlight. He's the guy getting the game ball on Sunday after they put up 41 points against Arizona, his former team. So that was pretty cool. Great coaching in a lot of different places in the league. Not so great in other places. I thought Matt LaFleur did an amazing job yesterday against the Vikings because that thing was over. They're down 28-0, and all of a sudden, they had one great shot on the CBS telecast where the Packers were on defense, and LaFleur was not on the sideline. He was sitting down looking at one of those iPads, just trying to figure out what the heck was going on, I presume, right? Like, how do I put a wrench in this Vikings defense and start to move the ball. The big mystery is, did the Vikings just back off because they were up so big, or was that really scheming to find some holes in the zones and wherever Vikings were showing on defense? Because remember, all week it was Jordan Love. We have no idea what to expect until the ball is snapped. And if they actually figured it out, they might have created the blueprint for other teams to do the same. So it's going to be a big test against Aaron Rodgers and that big brain of his in London this coming Sunday, and then the weeks going forward to see if that was just kind of a speed bump or something we have to worry about in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think that was going to be my next point. Is you just laid it out there. Did Matt LaFleur find and put the blueprint out there for teams to copy, or was it just the Vikings kind of backing off in that second half? Will, because it felt very different, obviously, in the second half, watching Green Bay get chunk play after chunk play after chunk play, and it was strange to watch that happen.
Yeah, I think you could look at it in both ways. I tend to not be super concerned by the Vikings' defensive performance in the second half. I know they gave up a ton of yards in that game. I think it was 465 total yards of offense, but that just kind of tends to happen, I think, when you're playing with a big lead and trying to I don't know that the Vikings shifted into any sort of prevent defense or changed up their strategy or took their foot off the gas, but you have to factor in that Matt LaFleur is one of the best offensive coaches in the league, and Jordan Love was playing very, very well despite not looking great in the first half with his knee injury that he was coming back from. He made a lot of great throws. The Packers have a lot of great receivers that are capable of making you pay. There were some plays where there were some total just coverage lapses and guys got wide open, and the Vikings will need to address that in the defensive meeting rooms this week. And I think, Blake Cashman said after the game, like, we needed to be humbled a little bit. This is kind of a wake-up call for us because that defense had just been cruising against everybody. So to take a little bit of a punch and maybe eat some humble pie and learn a lesson while doing so in a win and not a loss, I think that could be helpful for the Vikings because they do have Aaron Rodgers in London this week. And then after the bye, they've got Ben Johnson and Matt Stafford and the Lions. And then after that, on a short week, you go play Sean McVay and Matt Stafford. Did I say Matt Stafford before that? I meant Jared Goff. So, yeah, the next three games that the Vikings play are going to be against very capable, experienced quarterbacks and offenses in this league. So they'll have to, clean some things up, watch the film. And that was kind of an Ed Donatell defensive performance where they gave up a ton of yards. But Green Bay was 4 for 12 on third down, 0 for 2 on fourth down, and turned the ball over 4 times. So the defense still got the job done, but on a down-to-down consistency level, they're going to need to clean some things up and be better moving forward. And I think they absolutely can be.
And I don't think it could be overlooked how big that Xavier McKinney interception at the 2-yard line was, because that was an incomplete pass. He was out of bounds. Everybody in the world knows that except for the refs on the field. I haven't seen the post-game review from the NFL on the officiating and what calls were blown yet, but I'm guessing that's one of them. And if that's ruled incomplete, it would have been 3rd and 1 at the Green Bay 20-yard line. The Vikings might get a first down there. They might score a touchdown. And instead of it being 28, was it 28-0 when that happened, or 28-7?
28-7, so it could have been at least 31-7.
Yeah, exactly. 31-7 minimum, because that's a chip shot for Will Reichert, who's money from basically 100 yards in, it seems like. And then if it's a touchdown, it's 35-7, and this sucker's put to sleep. I mean, you're not coming back from that. So that was a momentous play, and they got it wrong. And, I kind of like it because at the end of the day, it put the Vikings in another situation where they had to show that they had some toughness and grit when the pressure was against them, kind of like after the Aaron Jones fumble against San Francisco in week number 2, and they came through. I mean, how aggressive was that offense when they were up 28-22 and Green Bay had all the juice? Darnold was hitting for shots down the field and intermediate strikes to Jefferson and Addison, and all of a sudden they're right back there into field goal range and putting some key points on the board when a lot of other teams would have folded.
Yeah, it's a good point that we talk about the Vikings haven't trailed since early in that Giants game, which is quite the funny stat now. That's 3 minutes and 26 seconds they've trailed this year out of 240. But they've had two really, really, really high leverage drives this year. Both of them up by exactly 6 points, all the momentum going the other team's way. And both times they've been able to move the ball downfield against a good defense and extend that lead to 9 and basically put it away. And Sam Darnold has been driving the bus on both of those drives. But I think it's also an interesting point that you bring up where, much like the 49ers game, this one didn't have to be as close as it was. And it
Yeah.
also realistically wasn't as close outside of that drive as it maybe felt. I don't think the Vikings win probability ever dipped below like 80%. The Packers offense never had the ball once with the chance to tie or take the lead. And yeah, if the Xavier McKinney interception, which went to replay review and somehow got held up in New York, which was
Yeah.
just bizarre to me when you watch that replay. If that gets correctly overturned, then it saves some stress. Keep in mind the whole thing turned at the end of what had been a flawless first half because Brandon Powell got hurt on a Sam Darnold hospital ball, and so Jalen Naylor, who doesn't return punts and hasn't in a while, maybe since college, is back there and loses a ball in the sun and shouldn't have even put his hands up to touch it. But yeah, the game did not need to be as close as the final score indicated, and also it wasn't quite as close as the final score totally indicated. Like didn't feel like a 2-point win, even if it got
No.
dicey in the second half.
No, I mean the onside kick was a little nerve wracking, but
2 for
it
2 on
really was.
those.
You know what? And I don't know what the Vikings. I have an excuse for that 5-play, 96-yard drive that took 1 minute and 22 seconds. That was pretty embarrassing. Other than that, I thought the defense was mostly pretty solid. And that blindside hit on Darnold, that was a huge play too. That's not going to happen every single week. At the end of the day, we all have to collect ourselves, take a breath, and realize that the Vikings just went into Lambeau Field and took one from a Green Bay team that a lot of people feel is a Super Bowl contender. And they had their quarterback. And I know he wasn't 100%, but the Vikings just went in and did that. This is as real deal as it gets. It's a matter of, okay, can we avoid these long streaks on offense where they went 5 consecutive possessions from late in the second quarter all the way into the fourth quarter without doing a damn thing? I mean, they were absent in the third quarter. They disappeared. That offense did for Minnesota. And then the defense, was that a speed bump, or was that something that other teams are going to expose like Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love did?
You mentioned Green Bay as one of the contenders going into the season. We're now at the quarter point of the season, sort of ish. The 17th game makes things a little wonky in that aspect. But I know we've still got the Lions-Seahawks game tonight, which will certainly impact how we probably answer this question. But with the Vikings at 4-0, top of the NFC at this point, who else is a contender in the NFC that I guess you look at and say, oh, they could give the Vikings trouble heading towards the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think it's still a lot of the teams that we saw or that we thought coming in. I still think the 49ers, despite being 2-2 and despite losing in the fashion they did to the Vikings, if you wanted to make a case that they still should be considered the best team in the NFC through 4 weeks, I don't think that's crazy. I think the Vikings having that head-to-head win and being 4-0 and having the resume that they have, it's a little more impressive through 4 weeks, but I still think the 49ers are a very, very good team. They just easily handled a bad Patriots team on Sunday. Should are very close to being 3-1 if they hadn't blown it against the Rams the week prior. But yeah, it's the 49ers. It's the Lions still. I'm not so sure about the Eagles, who I thought were good coming in. They just got blasted by Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. They look pretty out of sorts. And I still think this Packers team that the Vikings just beat is going to be a playoff team and is going to be a very good team the rest of the way, assuming Jordan Love stays healthy, because I just have a lot of respect for Matt LaFleur and I have a lot of respect for Jordan Love and what he showed in that game. I think they're going to be still a force to be reckoned with. I still think the NFC North right now, I think they get 3 teams into the playoffs. I think the Lions, Vikings, and Packers all make it. And the Vikings have just taken a pretty early lead in this division race. That's going to be really important for, avoiding going on the road in the first round. And that's why that game against the Lions after the bye week is going to loom really large in that regard as well. So we'll see. We're filming this before like you said, before the Monday night Seahawks-Lions game. where either way, Vikings fans will be able to have something fun to say. Because if the Lions win, then the Vikings are the only undefeated team in the NFC because the Seahawks will be 3-1. If the Seahawks win and go to 4-0, then guess what? The Vikings are up 2 games on the entire rest of the NFC North because the Lions and Packers would both be 2-2. So it's really kind of a can't lose for the Vikings tonight. Although I imagine for the actual stakes, they'll be cheering for the Seahawks to get it done.
Yeah, I think the Lions are still the team in the NFC that the Vikings should worry about the most. I think you're right on about the San Francisco 49ers. They are elite. I think the Eagles are really good. I think they had to go to Tampa Bay. They didn't have A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith, and that's tough. I mean, you lose 2 of your top guys, you're not going to have much success on offense. And I think in the second quarter, the Eagles were being outgained like 180 yards to 0. So it wasn't a thing of beauty. I think a couple of sneaky teams obviously still are Seattle and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's tough. I don't know how the hell they lost to the Broncos at home, but they did. Other than that, those guys are a tough beat. Cowboys are kind of one of those fringe teams, but as soon as Rex Ryan starts ripping you publicly like he has Mike Zimmer, I'm out on that defense. I don't think they can overcome that. I think they're going to get shredded a lot. And then Green Bay is the real deal still as well. Jordan
and Jaden Daniels in Washington, like you said,
you never know. They're going to be hard to play against. Yeah, they're going to be really hard to play against. And if he's C.J. Stroud reincarnated with more wheels, I mean that's pretty terrifying because they've got a bunch of weapons. And the defense, they can rush the passer. They're not too bad all around. We have to see it against some higher stakes competition like the Vikings have done to really elevate them into that stratosphere. But they certainly have that look of a dangerous team. And we go back to the coaching thing, how much that matters. I think Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury are a hell of a 1-2 punch to keep both sides of the ball running at the top of their game. But Detroit, man, they're scary. They haven't had an opportunity to really have anybody look at him and say, oh, yeah, you're not that good. They've had some close games, but look what they're doing. They're winning. I got a feeling they're going to blast Seattle on Monday Night Football, and then people will start to kind of turn their attention back to Dan Quinn and that really talented offense. Jared Goff's played like crap, and they've been awful in the red zone. So once they clean that up, they'll be really tough.
We talk about today the Vikings kind of being up there at the top of the NFC and NFL this season. We went into this season talking about this maybe being a transition year, kind of hoping to get by with Sam Darnold and see what you have in J.J. McCarthy. Obviously, after 4 weeks, that has changed quite a bit. Should we now grade everything else that happens after this point differently and have far different expectations, obviously, after the 4-0 start? Should we grade and evaluate everything differently now after this start going forward?
Yeah, I think so. I think, early in a season, you want a team to show you who they are, and there's a lot to learn about teams, especially when they're not total known commodities. I mean, this Vikings team was breaking in a new quarterback, a lot of new parts on defense, just a new running back, a lot of moving pieces, so we didn't know what to expect. And obviously, the external expectations were not very high. The win total was 6.5, which, they might hit after 7 games. And there just weren't a lot of expectations from this Vikings team, and that was somewhat understandable based on Sam Darnold's history. But I think all along the Vikings believed, their coaching, their talent, their environment, and what they can get out of players by putting them in position to succeed. And they've shown that through 4 weeks that the national media and everybody were totally wrong about this team.
Not everybody.
Not Joe Nelson. And this Vikings team is legitimately very good. They're 4-0. They're one of the best teams in the NFL. And we should absolutely grade everything and think about everything that they do the rest of the way within that context. And if they, somehow fall apart and come back to earth, it shouldn't be, oh, that's who they were all along. No, we've seen what they're capable of now. That would be extremely Twins level disappointing, more than Twins level disappointing if that were to happen because of the talent that this Vikings team has and the coaching that they have. So yeah, I think the floor, it should be 12-5, I think, which is going 8-5 the rest of the way. And I know Joe's going to say the floor is 14-3 or something like that, but
I'm looking at the schedule, you guys, and if they, I mean, one, they're not going to lose to the Jets unless I don't know. There's an earthquake or something in London. I don't know. That's the only way. And like the game's half over, and they just rule it a no contest, and they're down by 3 points, shockingly. But Sam Darnold revenge game. Aaron Rodgers. I mean, a chance to show the
They
entire.
just lost to the Broncos. Like,
Yeah, they
you
don't
can't-
look good. They don't look
Yeah.
good at all. I
They
mean,
lost to a team that threw for 70 yards.
who beyond
entire
Garrett
game.
Wilson is scary on that offense? I know that Breece Hall's good, and I know that
Breece.
Braylon Allen, the former Wisconsin Badger, is pretty good. But I mean, come on, man. This is not intimidating. Aaron Rodgers can't move. You know, this is not going to go well for that Jets team. And they've already got like schisms developing about cadences and when Aaron Rodgers should hike the football. So it's all blowing up in their face real quick. They're going to get smoked by this Vikings team in London. Minnesota's going to come back, rest up, and then if they get by Detroit in Minneapolis to get to 6-0, guaranteed 14-0 starting the season. It's a lock. You look
I
at
guarantee.
okay. You know, I thought
Not
the
Charles
Thursday
Barkley
night
voice.
game in week number 8, after the Detroit game in Los Angeles against the Rams, I thought that was a loss when the season began. But you know, Puka Nacua is out, Cooper Kupp is out. The Rams don't look good.
That'll be
Yeah.
all Vikings fans in SoFi too.
They don't have a crowd. Yeah, I mean that just doesn't look like a loss anymore to me. So you get through Detroit. If you beat the Lions to go to 6-0 because you ain't losing to the Jets, you're beating the Rams 7-0. You're beating the Colts here 8-0. You're going to Jacksonville and
Jags are
Trevor Lawrence.
terrible.
That's
Awful.
an easy win. That's 9-0. Tennessee 10-0 at
Yep.
Chicago. Come on, man.
Caleb
That's
Williams is going to
11-0.
look lost in that game.
I
The
don't
ghost
care
of
how
Soldier
far
Field?
into the season they are. They're not good. They have no offense. And against this defense, a rookie quarterback? Please. Then Arizona's here. 13-0. Chicago's here. 14-0. You're 14-0 going into December 22nd at Seattle. That might be the first loss of the season in Seattle if this team stays healthy and gets by Detroit. You can't deny that. That this is like, we talked about how good this 7-game run looks after that Detroit and LA back-to-back on 4 days of rest. Woo-hoo-hoo. I'm telling you guys, this is a real deal threat to go 14-0.
I would just say I love where your head's at. I agree with the assessment of the schedule. It's just it's hard to win in the NFL against just about anybody.
Doesn't look
If
that
they go,
hard.
if they doesn't, you're right. If they go 14-0, that would be quite something. There's a reason why. How many teams have gone 14-0 ever? Like 2 or 3. I don't know.
I remember the '98 Vikings started, I think, 6 or 7-0, and then they lost a tight one to Mike Allstott and the Bucks. Warren
Mike
Dunn
Allstott.
and Warren
That killed me in
Sapp,
Madden.
and that was tough. That was a tough one because they had a great defense, and then they finished 15-1, and then broke our hearts, obviously. But I don't know. I don't know that I've ever seen a schedule set up this way, where a team defies expectations. And just blows away all these really good teams, and then gets like a pass all the way into December. That's what it feels like.
What I will say is the Vikings have been underdogs the last 3 weeks, and
Yeah,
I
that's
think
start to change.
I just googled their early 2.5 point favorites in a neutral site game against the Jets, and if they win that, I don't know if they should be underdogs again for a long time, and that includes. In week 7 with the Lions coming here, I think the Vikings should be like 1 or 2 point home favorites in that game, as good as the Lions are. And then, I mean, you look on the schedule, they shouldn't be underdogs on the road against the Rams. They shouldn't be underdogs for a while. So I think they'll start to get a little more respect from Vegas after this 4-week start that they're off to. And again, I don't think they will win every single one of these games on the schedule, but if you want to tell me that they're going to be 12-2 after 14 weeks with the way they've played so far, I can absolutely see that happening. And
Okay, where's the 2 losses?
They'll have to stay healthy, and they'll have to keep playing like this. But
Where's the 2 losses?
So let me ask you then.
Something
I mean,
random.
the odds of it happening are historically not there. But you look at the stuff on the schedule, and you're like, it's there. It's really there.
I would say Detroit at home is losable. I mean, even the Jets in London is losable if you don't show up and fix a few things against Aaron Rodgers, and they do have a great defense. I don't know. I don't.
You
The
can't
Vikings
find
look
it.
So let me
Vikings
ask
look
you then.
really good, man.
Yeah.
So let me ask you then, because the Vikings were in a similar situation, similar-ish, in 2016. Going into their Week 5 match, 4-0, they won that one to go 5-0. They had a bye week, and then they came back from that bye week and then won 3 of their next 8 matches to go 8-8. They started off 5-0, hit a bye week, then came back and just struggled for the rest of the season. So what's preventing the Vikings from having a similar collapse as that? Because at the time, I don't remember it as well, but at the time, I imagine going 5-0 into the bye week, everybody's high on the Vikings thinking this team's really stinking good. They're pretty unbeatable. You're undefeated. And then they just came and stunk the bed for the rest of the season. What's preventing a similar collapse?
I'll tell you.
I think coaching. I mean, that was a Mike Zimmer team, an early-ish Mike Zimmer team with Sam Bradford, and they had a good defense.
They were 1 year away from being the best defense in the NFL.
You guys,
Coaching and the roster, and there's just a lot of things about this team that were better than that one. I was looking that up, and I think their point differential. Well, here, I'll add up their point differential while Joe makes his point.
well, I'll say this: Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen had not yet blossomed into superstars. They were both on that team. Kyle Rudolph was
Point
good.
differential was 20, by the way.
Charles Johnson, Jarius Wright, Laquan Treadwell, I think he was a rookie that season. Isaac Fruchty, Caledonia's finest. You had Blair Walsh as you had 2 kickers. Blair Walsh and Guy Forbath. Oh my God, times have changed. Yeah, I mean, strong defense, but you're not gonna do what you're doing. Here's the biggest question: who was the offensive coordinator? Pat Shurmur, Norv Turner. I mean, there's some good minds there, but.
I think that was that the year where Norv Turner
quit after the Bears game.
Because they had so many offensive coordinators, just a revolving door.
That's because
under
everybody's called out Zimmer because of the way he treated everybody and was my way or the highway. Apparently, that's the allegation that's out there from everybody from those teams. But that's beside the point. The bottom line is this just feels way different. Way different. I don't think the expectations they might have been lower in 2016 than they were from the external.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To start this season.
I was telling people in the press box yesterday, this was during the Vikings' unbelievable first half, but this team feels different to me than even the 2017 team that went 13-3 and made the NFC title game felt, because that was a great, maybe the best defense in the league, but it was also Case Keenum, and it felt a little bit of you were kind of riding a miracle with the quarterback play, and as much as Sam Darnold hasn't accomplished a whole lot in the NFL, this feels very sustainable from him. I mean, this is every single week through 4 games, at least 109 passer rating, multiple touchdown passes. Like he's lighting it up and playing really consistent, confident, effective, accurate football. And the pieces that they have all around him on offense, the pieces they have on defense, like. This feels different to me than any Vikings team since 2009.
Well,
and I know there's a long way to go still, 13 games left, but they just have that. They have that feeling to them that they have a really high ceiling this year if they stay healthy.
Yeah, and I even that 2009 team, you had vintage Brett Favre, but I mean he was throwing the ball to Sidney Rice and Bernard Berrien. And Percy Harvin, which Harvin was nice.
Ooh, Shanko's a good player.
And Adrian Peterson was young and amazing, but that's different than Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and eventually T.J. Hawkinson. That's a level up, Sidney Rice, Favre made guys good. These guys are already elite, and now Darnold's talent is shining through, and together it's this beautiful recipe for offensive explosiveness and dangerous success. And then the other thing, Aaron Jones, man, just the duality as a runner and a receiver, the Vikings haven't had that in ages. I mean, who was the last running back that was this kind of a dynamic threat in the run and the pass game for Minnesota?
Dalvin Cook had some years like that.
Okay, yeah, a little bit.
But I was just revisiting, and it's September still, so I'm not going to take any victory laps.
Right.
But I was revisiting a bold predictions article I had before the season, and I said Aaron Jones was going to set a career high in yards from scrimmage, which he needs to get like 1,600, which was a bold prediction after he's going to turn 30, and he's coming off an injury, and he's on pace to do that through 4 weeks. That's all I'll say. He's comfortably on that pace so far. He's got to stay healthy, but yeah, he has been very, very good. My other bold prediction was Brian Flores' defense will become top 6 in DVOA. Well, they're number 1 right now, so that one looks pretty good too. Then I had Will Reichard setting some records. He looks pretty good, so we'll see. I also said Sam Darnold was going to throw 30 interceptions, so that I don't think that one's going to
happen. Hey, theory. Here's my theory. Here's what happened against the Packers in the second half. Mainly in the fourth quarter, mind you, because I don't know if you guys remember, but the Packers started the second half 3 and out and basically 4 and out, right? It wasn't going well. Mm-hmm. They didn't start cooking until there was under a minute left in the fourth quarter, or the third quarter, and I think that was the McKinney pick, right? So they literally had about a 10-minute stretch of just great success. My theory is Brian Flores called off the dogs 100%, stopped disguising, and said, "We're not giving you any more film, future opponents. This is all you get. It's now a preseason game. Enjoy the 3 quarters that we gave you. It was a show, and we whooped ass." That's my theory. That very well might be the case.
That's a little Conspiracy Joe-ish.
Yeah.
Welcome to Joe, by the way, Will.
Yeah.
Just because you can, you don't want to risk. The Vikings didn't want that game to get as sweaty as it got for them. But I hear you on the theory.
On that note, then.
I'm never wrong. I don't know if you guys noticed. I'm always right now. Something happened this year where I'm just always right. I don't know.
Except for the Gophers beating Iowa by 2 touchdowns.
That was a fluke. That was a massive fluke. You know what?
That video doesn't exist on this channel anymore, remember?
No, I deleted that. Yeah.
So on this note, then, let me ask you guys this. The offense is working. The defense is is immovable. The refs are apparently calling calls for us now. The kickers can't miss, and we've got a kicker who can make a 58-yarder that looked good from probably 75 yards. Is the Vikings curse broken? It feels like something's vastly different. I know it's 4 weeks, but things seem to be trending in the direction that curses are starting to be broken around here.
I don't necessarily. I'm not a big curse guy, and there's a lot of time left still. I'd say for things to flip the other way. But the biggest thing that did it for me is when the Packers kicker,
doinked
on the 37-yarder and then missed another one. Kickers against the Vikings never miss. I've been covering this team since 2019 and watching them my whole life. The kickers don't miss against the Vikings.
Think about that Eagles game last year.
Amy Fairbairn did it last week too.
God.
Exactly. And when they had 2 misses, and they might cut that kicker at some point, the Packers, but that's when I was like, did they make some sort of deal with the devil that we're gonna sacrifice the Twins and Karl Anthony Towns to make the Vikings just unbeatable now? I have no idea, but what a start. I mean, if you're a Vikings fan, you are just having the time of your life right now and hoping it keeps rolling.
There's a lot of things that could happen to ruin this for us Minnesotans.
It's true.
And it'll probably
we've seen it happen all before.
I mean we've entered a point where when you take off the unbiased goggles and you start to look at it from a fan's view and you say, wow, this looks like a Super Bowl team. This might actually happen this year. They could be healthy, everything going right, and all of a sudden something like nuclear war will happen and we're all dead and it's over.
Oh my goodness.
Or the greatest gamma ray from a dying star zaps us and just explodes the earth. Or maybe
now Will's getting the full Joe treatment.
Maybe the second moon that is not visible to the naked eye and they need a professional telescope. Maybe that's out there, and that's actually the Anunnaki coming back from Nibiru on a spacecraft to destroy the NFL season. There's a lot of things that could be happening, guys, and we should be prepared for all of them.
I think we got to end the video on that
question my
note.
hosting skills for allowing this to happen.
Don't ask stupid questions if you don't want stupid answers.
On that note, then, because we went full Joe conspiracy theory at the end of this, we'll end it here. We'll come back tomorrow. We've got plenty to discuss across Minnesota sports. Twins collapsing, comments from the owners about payroll and such. Wolves trading Karl Anthony Towns. We've got it all covered. We're going to cover it all. We're going to continue covering it all here on the channel and also over on Vikings, Twins, Timberwolves, Wolves, or Gophers, and Badgers on SI, covering it all for you all week long throughout a busy sports season. Boys, we'll talk to you tomorrow, Minnesota sports fans. Check back in tomorrow for another sports video from us here at Bring Me the Sports.